Well, hello again. I'd like to call this video How to Prepare for a Reading. And at a certain point I was given some information, or given some suggestions on how the kind of steps to go through before a reading and certain things to do. And I found them very useful, and I'd like to pass them on to you because you may want to simply duplicate what I do, which is a method I like. Or you could adapt it to your own to your own personality, let's say, or to your own methods for reading cards. And so I was told one of the first things to do is make a note of readings. And so you can have some kind of notebook, and you make a note of the person's name and the date, but you keep all the information together in the same book, and you can find that a week after reading you look back on it and you make some notes about what cards came up and what you found out later and how this was actually shown in the reading, although maybe you didn't see it at the time. And it can be annoying because you sort of, looking back, you see things you didn't see at the time, but you have to remember that, or it's useful to remember that the reading takes place at that time. And you have to trust that you're going to tell the person what he or she needs to know at the moment. And so a week later, a month later, you can look back and see an awful lot more. But you're not supposed to, or there's no benefit really in wishing you had said this, or wishing you had said that, or wishing you had noticed this that you didn't know, that you see now that you didn't see back then, because it's about the reader, it's about the questioner, and not about you. And you have to trust that, or it's better if you trust that you told the person as much as they could handle at the time, or you told the person what they needed to know back then for their own benefit. So, I think it's a good idea. Make a note of the person's name and the date. And then I'd now like to get the question to pick a number between 0 and 22. And obviously, I want to get a major trump that's important, or that in some way is going to be useful for me to know. And also, I may end up telling them about the meaning of that particular number that they chose. And even though they don't consciously know the meaning of the number or the symbolism, subconsciously they know. And I think that's a fact, that people appreciate and understand symbolism, even if they're not aware that they do this. And so if somebody chooses the number 1, I might want to explain to them during the reading, or it would be interesting if the magician card came up in the reading. But if you choose the number 1, you're ready for a new beginning. You've got ideas, you've got imagination, and so on, or whatever the magician would mean to you. Whereas somebody else choosing the number 15, which we know is the devil, that's a different kind of individual than the magician. Because maybe with the devil, if somebody chooses 15, you have to be careful what you say to them, because maybe they're susceptible to bad news, or they're expecting the ongoing problems or ongoing difficulties. And maybe what the reading is going to be about is showing them how to get out of a sort of maybe a hole they've dug themselves into, or showing them how they can release themselves from a difficult situation that they find themselves in. So by having the questioner choose a number and making a note of the number, okay, on your piece of paper or in your book, it's useful. So let's say we've got the number. Then the next thing to do, I think, is to talk about what questions the person wants to have answered. And I think in a reading you've got a limited amount of energy, so you can't answer 50 questions. And depending on who the person is and what they know and what they want, you could maybe decide, you talk to them and find out what they want to know. The thing is, you could pick a card and tell them, okay, you want to know about this, based on the card that you choose, and that's okay, but it takes a certain amount of, you've got a limited amount of energy, at any one reading. And you could use energy telling the person why they're there, but I think it's better for them to explain or to tell you what they want to know, and to have a little bit of discussion about what the question is or what the questions are. And then you, the reader, because you know a bit more, you can figure out the best way to give them most value in the reading. So maybe you decide that with a little bit of discussion back and forth, you decide that, okay, these are the two important questions that you've got. Let's answer them first. And then if we have any energy left at the end, we'll deal with the other ones. Or maybe you realise that the person's got half a dozen things they want to know. So you'll choose maybe 3 cards for each one, or 1 card for each one. So it sort of makes the best use of what's available at the time. So I think it's a good idea to discuss the question. Sometimes people don't want to do this, and that's fair enough. Some people want to ask a silent question, and that's okay as well. But I think it's a good idea to say to them, make sure you ask a question that can be answered. Because if their silent question is, will I marry Bill or Tom? How can you answer that? Maybe you could choose a few cards and get the character or the personality of this individual, and if that fits Tom, then you're going to marry Tom, or if it fits Bill, you're going to marry Bill. But it could be like, am I going to get a job with company A or company B? How can you really answer that? It's difficult. Whereas, so I think there's a certain, you can maybe split that into 2 questions. Will I get a job with A? Will I get a job with company B? So there is value, I think, in having some kind of open discussion with the questioner, finding out what he or she wants to know, figuring out the order in which you're going to ask the questions, and write them down on a piece of paper. Partly because it's so easy to forget what the question actually was. Because somebody might, somebody maybe is looking to get a new job, and so you figure out, okay, am I going to get this job? But at the same time, they say, well, if I'm going to get it, I'd like to know how I'm going to get it as well. And you say, okay, I can take care of that. So then you shuffle and you lay cards down, but then you forget, what was the question? I think we have to appreciate that the tarot was going to ask the question. It was going to answer the question that you ask. And if you've written down, will I get the job? Then the cards that come up are going to show, if they're positive, good cards and strong cards, then the indication is yes, it's going to work out in your favour, so you're going to get the job. Whereas if the question is, how will I get this job? Then you look at these same cards and you're looking to see, is this a strength that you've already got, or is it a weakness that you have to do something about? So when you go to the interview, or when they ask you, what do you bring to the company, you're going to emphasize the magician, so you're going to emphasize you've got good ideas. Whereas if the lovers comes up, then you're going to emphasize that you're good at getting along with people. You can bring out the best in people. You can see what they're capable of. And so if you're going to be leading the team, it's going to be the team is going to get good results, because you can not order people around, but you can direct them, and you can point them in good directions, and you can organize so that you bring out the best in everybody. And that would be, how do I get the job, rather than will I get the job. So discussion, take some time, figure out what the questions are and the order in which you're going to ask the questions.